He's agreeing to cooperate, and do you expect that he will do so fully and thoroughly?
We do. Thank you.
That was ABC's Pierre Thomas talking with Paul Manafort's attorney, Kevin Downing, on Friday after the former Trump campaign chairman pleaded guilty to lesser charges of conspiracy in exchange for cooperating with special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Manafort becomes the fifth and highest-ranking Trump campaign official to plead guilty to criminal charges and to agree to share what he knows with investigators. Manafort's arrangement requires him to answer fully, truthfully, completely, and forthrightly questions about any and all matters and to furnish all documents and other material that may be relevant to the investigation. He also agrees to testify at any court proceeding and waives the right to have counsel present during interviews by investigators. Joining us now to discuss what this all means, former Whitewater independent counsel Ken Starr, author of the new book Contempt, a memoir of the Clinton investigation, and President Obama's ethics czar Norm Eisen, also out with a new book, The Last Palace, Europe's Turbulent Century in 5 Lives and One Legendary House. Judge Starr, let me start with you. This development surprised a lot of us. Were you surprised to see Manafort not only plead guilty, but agree to this full cooperation?
No, he was under tremendous pressure, and had I been his counsel, I would say, Paul, we gave it our best shot in Alexandria. He had his opportunity before a jury, and he was convicted on a number of counts. So given the seriousness of the charges that were awaiting him, he did the right thing. He did the smart thing.
Now, you've been in Mueller's shoes trying to get agreements from witnesses. Given what Mueller offered here, a cap of 10 years for all those charges, how significant would the proffer had to have been from Manafort?
Well, there were 3 days of negotiations, we are led to believe, so we don't know. But I would say this, it is very likely that Paul Manafort has indicated through his counsel and directly that he can provide very helpful information, useful information, to get to the bottom of what Bob Mueller and his team have been charged to do. So it is a very significant breakthrough. Now, having said that, from my own experience, as I recount in the book, you enter into an agreement with someone, Webb Hubbell. We did not think that Webb Hubbell, an echo of the past, cooperated with us. We enter into an agreement with Governor Jim Guy Tucker after his conviction, very similarly situated to Paul Manafort. And it turned out he really didn't have as much information as we thought he would. But the key is...
Monica Lewinsky certainly did, but that's a
different part of the story. Yeah. But the key thing is, truthfully, you know, there's some adverbs that were used that are very important. Fully, truthfully, and so forth. Will the witness, in fact, will Paul Manafort be truly forthcoming and give more than what the typical cooperating witness gives you, which is 80%? Will he give 100%? Not make stuff up. People said, oh, no, he'll say anything that the prosecutors want him to say. No, Bob Mueller is an ethical guy. He's an honest guy. He will, I think, say, as we would say to our witnesses, we can deal with the truth, whatever the truth is. What we can't deal with are lies.
Norm, you've known Robert Mueller for decades. What is your read on what he expects to get out of Paul Manafort?
Well, John, thanks for having me back on the show. Pleasure to be here with my friend Judge Starr. Bob is highly ethical, but also among the most rigorous. I would say there is no prosecutor alive who's more rigorous than Bob. I don't think, given the nature of the fight that Manafort put up, the seriousness of the crimes and the power of the evidence of those crimes, John, that this deal would have been offered absent some very powerful evidence. And, you know, in our profession, in the those who defend and prosecute criminal matters, you only get a deal like this if you go up the chain. Who is up the chain from Paul Manafort, who was the chair of the Trump campaign?
Not
Don
many.
Jr., Roger Stone, the campaign itself, and perhaps ultimately the president. So I think there is a substantial, we don't know for sure, the judge is right, but I think there's a substantial possibility that this evidence that Manafort is offering will implicate somebody up the chain.
So Judge, we've heard Alan Dershowitz, who has often been very positive about the president, saying that this is a huge win for Mueller, opens up a lot of doors that have not been opened in terms of the Russia investigation. At the same time, we hear a very dismissive reaction, perhaps not surprisingly, from the president's legal team. This is meaningless, has nothing to do with the president himself. Who's right?
Well,
we don't know.
we don't know. Understandably, it would be dismissed by the president as a nothing burger. There's nothing to this. But I think Alan is right that, look, Bob Mueller now has someone who's cooperating with him. He was on the other side of the courtroom fighting every step of the way. And now you have Paul Manafort saying, I'm now here to help. So I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be truthful. Because, by the way, if Manafort is not truthful, the deal is off. And it's the prosecutor who makes the determination whether the witness is living up to the agreement of being truthful and cooperative. So we don't know. The way I think Bob Mueller, and I have worked with Bob Mueller, is looking at it is, I now am moving toward getting to the bottom of the whole originating issue of collusion. Because what Paul Manafort was doing in his representations, his violations of federal law and so forth, are all prior to the Trump campaign and so forth. So there's a certain ancient history quality to what he has pled to. But now he was, of course, the campaign manager. So this is a very helpful, I think, thing for the American people. I know the nation is so divided, but we should want the truth. Let's get the facts out. Let's don't have fake news. Let's just have the truth. And I think Mueller is in a situation now to help us do that.
Now, Manafort had been in this joint defense agreement with the president's legal team. How does that complicate things? And does that go away now?
Well, the joint defense agreement does go away now. The joint defense agreements are founded on common interests, John. So the interests have diverged. What doesn't go away is privileged information that was shared by the president or by his lawyers with Manafort and his lawyers originating from Trump during the pendency of that agreement. It's the same as if President Trump had provided that attorney-client privilege information to his own lawyers. That's protected. So Manafort can't say, well, here's what I heard the president says about the Trump Tower meeting. But Manafort can speak fully and completely. And the reason I believe, as I wrote in the Times the other day, the reason that I believe that this is a pivotal turning point is, and the judge knows this full well from his investigation, which secured 14 convictions, Manafort is a Sherpa for the key moments. He is somebody who can come to court and explain. For the first time, we have somebody who was at the infamous Trump Tower meeting. Yeah. We have his notes. He can explain his notes. He can talk about the run-up to that meeting, the afterwards.
And how significant is it that this agreement says that he will talk to investigators and answer their questions without his attorney present?
Well, I think it's enormously, again, helpful to doing what? Let's get to the truth of the matter. It's hard to overestimate the sense that prosecutors have. We want to get to the bottom of these issues so we have all the facts and we can assess those facts. And so it's all the more helpful that Paul Manafort has said, you have me, and I'm going to give you the truth and nothing but the truth. So I think this is really good for the country.
What happens if the president pardons Manafort at this point?
He has the power to do that. And then I think it really becomes an issue of, is that an abuse of power on the part of the president in light of an ongoing investigation? I have a very different view of obstruction of justice than a number of folks. And
which is a topic for another discussion. But what happens if if he is pardoned, does the cooperation cease? Does Manafort suddenly, can he walk away from all this and not answer?
The pardon, if anything, creates more exposure, because now there can be no, once you have that pardon, there can be no claim that you have any additional, that Manafort has any additional Fifth Amendment risk, right? So you can just drag Manafort and throw him in the grand jury. But that's going to happen anyhow, John. This evidence is coming out.
So the pardon doesn't stop.
The pardon will only, in my view, will only hurt Trump. It will only dig the hole deeper. But I think this week is going to be looked back on as a historic turning point.
Okay, we're just about out of time. Quick predictions from both of you. How much longer does this go on? Is this an indication that the Mueller investigation is really just beginning, or is wrapping up?
Depends on what Paul Manafort has to say. What is he pointing folks to? And it may very well be that some of the things he's going to point, maybe, Bob Mueller, too, will be handed off to others in the Justice Department. In other words, Bob Mueller may say, I've done my job. Here it is. Here's my report to the Deputy Attorney General.
When do you think this ends?
You know, having just completed the history of Democratic inflection points over the past 100 years, John, the history as seen through the windows of that house, that the judge, I was pleased to welcome the judge and his wife Alice to see me there. This is I believe, not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning for Donald Trump. We have seen a new chapter. He's not going to survive Manafort's testimony. That's my
very
prediction.
Churchillian of you. Judge Norm, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.